Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to take this moment to say thank you for listening to the Real ResQ podcast. It means a lot to me that you enjoy these stories as much as I do. Since the start of this podcast, we've had a lot of support from all over the world. It has been amazing. Now, we have companies joining our team that also want to say thank you for all that you are doing out there standing the watch. These companies are offering discounts on their products as a way to support the rescue community and those tuning into the Real ResQ podcast. Just go to therealresq.com, click on sponsors, and see these incredible offers for yourself. This episode of the Real ResQ podcast is brought to you by Breeze Eastern, the world's only dedicated helicopter hoist and winch provider. Axness, because when lives are at stake and conditions are challenging, clear communication is of the utmost importance. SR3 Rescue Concepts, because you don't know what you don't know. And Airwave, the Airwave Performance Mouthpiece, helping you to use breathing to your advantage. Breeze Eastern, they dedicate themselves to our helicopter rescue world. Since the very first helicopter rescue in November of 1945, Breeze Eastern has designed and manufactured superior rescue hoist solutions. While much of the technology and the unique mission requirements have changed over the past 75 years, their commitment to the rescuers, the operators, and those being rescued has not. Contact them today by visiting them at breeze-eastern.com. The Axness PNG wireless ICS system can bring cutting-edge wireless intercommunication system technology to any aircraft. The PNG system can be fully integrated into an existing ICS system or can be carried on and off as a mobile base station. They can go anywhere at any time on any aircraft. Plus, with the strongest and most robust waterproof handheld on the market, this system can take a hit and keep working. Their wireless intercom systems are designed to enhance situational awareness through improved communication capability. This system brings superior noise-canceling technology to eliminate rotor wash and engine noise from your ICS. The Axness PNG wireless system is currently deployed in more than 1,800 public safety, air ambulance, and search and rescue aircrafts worldwide. I have personally used the Axness system in 4 different countries and on 5 different airframes. It is awesome. If you want more information, contact them today at axness.com. That's AXNES.com. You just make sure you tell them Quinny sent me. SR3 Rescue Concepts is a training company that can help your helicopter training. They train daytime, nighttime, aerial firefighting, hoist, long line, fast rope, rappel, and more. They can assist your program with standardization and safety checks or just an FAA annual refresher. With the certified flight instructor pilots and experienced crew, they are ready to help your agency keep up to date with current techniques, rules, regulations, and equipment. Plus, right now, SR3 is offering 10% off anything in their web store with the promo code, all capital letters, Real ResQ, REALRESQ. Plus, they are offering another 10% from their partners Petzl and their equipment. All you got to do is send an email to info@sr3rescueconcepts.com, mention this podcast, and they'll take care of the rest. And Airwave. What if I told you that you could train harder for longer and recover faster just by wearing a mouthpiece? I know, I questioned it too. Then I gave it a try. The Airwave Performance Mouthpiece is a breakthrough in performance technology that is scientifically proven with over 15 years of peer-reviewed, published research at the Citadel to open your airway by 25% for improved breathing, resulting in a 20% decrease in respiratory rate, an increase in muscular endurance, and 50% reduction in cortisol levels post-workout. Now, what does this mean to me? Well, now I'm able to train harder, recover faster, and be even more prepared for when that SAR alarm goes off. You don't need to take my word for it. Try it yourself and see how you can use your breathing to your advantage. Go to airwave.com or visit them on Instagram @airwave to learn more about it. Then, when you're ready to give it a try, Because you heard about it here at the Real ResQ, you get 10% off with the promotion code Real ResQ, RealResQ. Coming up next, we've got stories to get into the mountains, the ice, the snow, rappelling in and hoisting out. They are incredible. So please welcome our next guest, United States Navy Search and Rescue Corpsman, Mr. Wayne Papalski. My name is Jason Quinn. I am United States Coast Guard Rescue Swimmer number 500. These are my rescues and rescues from those of us that put our lives on the line every day so others may live. This is the Real ResQ Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Real ResQ Podcast. I've got another Navy boy with me. Yes. Now, he's not a rescue swimmer. I know. Wah, wah. I'm just kidding, Wayne. Just kidding, bro. Okay, just kidding.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. Yeah. So the only person that was laughing was me. That's terrible.
Yeah. Floating. I got it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Rescue floater. I'm just kidding. Anyway, so Mr. Wayne Papalski, Navy SAR Corpsman, and beyond that, he does a whole bunch of other stuff in the helicopter, including a hoist operator. You're a gunner, you're the medic, you're a whole bunch of stuff with the air crew. Just straight up badass in the back, right? I mean, that sums it up for you?
It's pretty fun. Yeah, it's a pretty good time. Yeah,
I like that.
It's never bad. Yeah, it's never bad. So
awesome. Well, dude, thank you so much for coming in. As a matter of fact, let me throw one more plug in here because you are co-host of another podcast out there called Dust Off Medic. Is that right?
that is correct. Yeah, one of the co-hosts with another phenomenal group of now quad service. We have a Coast Guard swimmer on there, but yeah, we have a ton of good people on there doing some good podcasts, debriefs, vignettes, talking about new stuff.
Love it. A lot of medical stuff that's out there on the podcast that you guys can really dive deep into. It's pretty good.
Yep.
So yeah, so go check that out right after you listen to the whole thing of this one.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
Right on. All right, well, I'll tell you what, man, before we get into some of your rescues and stuff, if you don't mind, give us a little background about who you are and how you joined the Navy and so on and so forth. How you became a corpsman.
Yeah, so grew up in the Jersey area, right around Newark and Bayonne, right across from New York City. Was a sophomore in high school. 9/11 happened, like right in front of my eyes. Saw the second tower fall from like the rooftop of my high school, and then decided to. Yeah, it was pretty gnarly. And then like shortly after that, like all the recruiters are coming by. So I ran into a buddy who was 2 grades ahead of me. He joined the Marine Corps. Talked to him. I was like, hey, I want to do something in medicine, because I saw like the first responders. Like it was just like endless miles of first responders going to New York City. So I was like, hey, I want to do something like that. And then he's like, not to be too like inappropriate or whatever, but he was like, you got to go see, inappropriate word over to the guys in white over in the Navy if you want to do that, call them like homosexuals or whatever. And I was like, all right, dude, like cool, I'll go over there, So I went over, and at that time, out of the Brooklyn MEPS, we were not at war with Iraq yet. We were still in Afghanistan, and they were minting corpsmen out of that MEP station. And I had no idea what a corpsman was. I just told him I wanted to do something medical. I thought I was going to be like working on an ambulance or a fire truck or something. I'm dumb, I'm 16 years old. I didn't know. And yeah, you're going to be I was pronouncing it wrong. I was like, I'm going to be a corpse man. Like I'm going to be handling corpses. I was like, I guess, I don't know. And then I had no idea, dude. Like they don't tell you anything. They tell you shit. Right. So like hey, get in behind the curtain. Boom. So. So I came in 2004, went right to Corps school. Someone had talked to me in Corps school about being a search and rescue corpsman. And I'll mention this a couple of times throughout we're talking, but like from the moment I came in, we were told we were going away. Like the community was just going away. They were getting rid of them. There was no need for them. search and rescue was kind of dwindling down because of the civilian buildup of search and rescue stuff, such as like CHP and like all the heart teams for the National Guard. So,
Yeah.
the Coast Guard and the Navy's gift back to the United States has always been search and rescue. So, and we had all those station SAR commands all over the country. So they were dying down. They were going to get rid of us. So I dropped the package for it, and then they were like, "No, hey, you don't have this." So I had my first duty station was Naval Hospital Great Lakes, which is where I went to corps school. So I literally checked out as a student and then checked in as staff. So I wasn't
rough.
there that it was super rough. I wasn't there that long. I ended up getting to do some cool stuff and leave. But I ended up going on this training trip, and I a training trip that almost turned into a deployment, and I ended up having a heat stroke patient, and I turned him over to what I thought was like a flight medic, and he had a patch on his arm that said search and rescue corpsman. And I was like, "What the fuck is that?" And he's like, "I'm a corpsman." And I was like, "I'm a corpsman." I was like, and we're like underneath the rotor arc, like screaming at each other.
Yeah.
And he like gave me his patch and was like, "Find me." And I was like, "I don't even know your name, bro." But like I found him because there's not that many of them. And then he gave me all the information. And then shortly after that, he was on their podcast too. My best friend in the whole world is Ryan Honnell.
Shout out to
And
Ron Honnell.
yeah, shout out to Ryan. So like he checked in up there starting the package to go into the pipeline, and I had just dropped my package. So ended up being a peer group ahead and behind each other our entire time. So screened, dropped the package, got picked up, and started doing that at the end of 2006. And went through the pipeline down in Pensacola, went to, at the time, the Army Flight Medic course when it was at Fort Rucker, and then went to my first command. So it was like, it's very like minted.
Let me come back because I don't know a whole lot about how the transition happens to your training. So to be like, I get the corpsman side of training, and for those that don't know, it's like an introduction to medicine.
It's like EMT basic with like medical assisting.
Yeah. That's perfect. So what does it take to be the SAR side? What do you guys do for training to be SAR?
Yeah, so there's the corpsman rate, right? Like I know the Coast Guard has rates, other services have MOSs. We are one of 52 NECs inside of the corpsman community. There's tons of different types of corpsmen. So our training starts off in Pensacola, Florida at Aircrew School. You go through with like all the fixed wing and all the rotary wing, Navy, Marine Corps. We've had Coast Guard in there, and then like foreign service.
Wow.
And then you do that 4 weeks, which is basically just survival school, floating in a pool.
Nice.
Yeah, with or without gear on. From there, you go to Fort Rucker, which was at the time 6 or 7 weeks. And this is before any service had flight paramedics. So we just did ACLS, PALS, ITLS at the time, like what TCCC was forming to be for conventional forces. And then just a ton of like drills in the back of a helo shell. You got like one hoist on a Huey, like a Vietnam era Huey on a jungle penetrator.
Not nice.
Yeah. Some guy in some VFW was like, "Yeah, brother," like it was very scary. But yeah, at the time, like, you're 20 years old, you're like, "This is awesome." And then that's it. So at that specific point and in our history, all of our stuff was OJT. So like you checked in, you were an apprentice. You got a master, and like that was your dude. He was probably 2 to 3 peer groups ahead of you on his way out to retirement. And his job was to train you as a SAR corpsman. You had 6 months to get qualified. So 6 months of what we now label as hazing. Some people call it constructive criticism now, but so you have 6 months to get qualified, and that's, at the time, it was just like whatever they felt worked. And then now we have like an official, it's not even called a PQ, a JQR, a job qualification.
Oh, nice.
task book. So we have an official like JQR now. But at the time it was just like
Smart.
whatever they wanted. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, today I want you to carry Rescue Randy on your back for everywhere you go on base in uniform. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool, bro.
Yeah.
So,
I get
but
it. Like, you know
yep.
what? I actually get
Yeah.
both sides of it too, and that was it's a kind of a personal pet peeve of mine. Like you go through, like anyway, we'll get into it, but
Yeah.
it's the norms. You know, it's one of
Yeah.
the CRM things, like the norms. Get out of the norms, but it's that
Yeah.
this is the way we've always done it. You know, and
Yeah.
then you
It's
got
it.
guys that are handing down bad information because nobody knows any better.
Yeah.
When
I had like it will when we get to that point about one of the rescues you're gonna bring up, but like this one specific point, I had a mentor. He was a Cherry Point guy. Cherry Point Station SAR is like famous throughout like the Navy and the Marine Corps just because they got like 150 missions a year. But it was the way they trained, which is why they were famous. They were very aggressive. They did these things called scream and shouts. Uh, and looking back at it, we would always think like, oh my God, you guys got hazed. And like actually, it was very structured, very scripted. No one ever had a problem with it, but they were groomed for being really good technicians, really good medics.
interesting.
And one of my mentors came from there, so he brought that stuff down to Jacksonville, Florida, where I was getting trained, and he always would make me fireman carry Rescue Randy. He was like, "Yeah, man, like you never know, like when a B-17 crashes in the woods, you know, you got a fireman carry someone because he had a rescue like that." And I was like, I don't know if that will ever happen, dude, but I'm not gonna second guess you because you outrank me, but I'll carry Rescue Randy. But he made me bring rescue. One day I was leaving. He's like, "Don't forget to dress Rescue Randy in his flight suit, and I'll be at the front gate. He better be buckled in the passenger seat." And I was like, "Nah, you're full of shit." And he was like, "No, I'm being for real." And he was at the front gate as I drove in the next day, and I had Rescue Randy in my passenger seat. So I was like, he gave a little salute, you know. But yeah, wild time to be alive. So
Oh my gosh,
yeah, it
dude,
was
I
pretty
love
good.
it. I
It
love
was
it.
good training. It was good training. You learn a lot, man, or you learn a lot
Yeah,
from everyone. The do's and don'ts, you know, don't be like
yeah,
him, be like him. So
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. So
yeah,
I don't want to take away from any of the training like that anybody's been through, good, bad, or indifferent, because that comes in as well. Like, don't be like that guy. Be more like that guy.
yeah,
In our world, like aviation in general, it's a small world. So
yeah,
you can make a name for yourself pretty quick, good or
yeah,
bad.
yeah. Good and
So
bad. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, and
yeah,
it's all those like the guys that call you later, like, and it's the random phone calls you'll get from somebody like, "Hey, you know so and so?" Like, yeah. What do you think? Ooh, you want
or
my
yeah,
like, you want my
yeah.
honest opinion or my like?
There's I've come to learn that there's three different levels of he's a good dude. Yeah, like yo, he's a good dude. He's an all right dude. He's a good
Yeah.
dude. I'm like, oh, he's a bad guy. You know, like yeah,
Right. Okay, you know what?
yeah,
Because I don't ever want to get in the way of somebody else's career. I don't want to I don't want to stop somebody from getting
yeah,
a job. That's not the. But if you're calling me and you want my opinion,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like,
I've had to do the same. Yeah, yeah,
hey, rule number
yeah,
6: don't be a prick. You'll be
yeah,
fine.
yeah. Oh
Oh
shit.
shoot!
Yeah,
All right, man. I'll tell you what. Let's before I get into all the like the award stuff like, and some of the fun
yeah.
stuff. What was your very first rescue you had as a SAR tech?
It was a good one. So we were leaving for deployment. We're getting ready to leave for deployment. We're doing like a last minute workup, and uh, what the whole story is wild. But and I'm not digging on the Coast Guard. So we got paged
Oh,
out.
absolutely, you are. Okay,
We
you
got.
already started. What
I
the hell?
started. I'm just poking. So we got paged out on. It wasn't even paid. I'm saying paged out because that's how we got our rescues in Washington. But we were flying around, and over Maritime 16, we heard the Coast Guard asking for assistance because they couldn't find this vessel. So there was two Navy ships in the area, and they were asking to get bearings and bunos to head out that way. So we were like, all right, what's going on? So we like it was a bird out of E City, and this is in 2000, early 2008. So it was for an explosion on a boiler ship.
Ooh.
So we were like, and we were like, all right, what do you have? And they said, hey, they have 4 patients. It ended up being 3, but they had 4 patients, and it sounded like there was an explosion somewhere in an engine room, and they need assistance. So like, I think I had been qualified like 2 weeks, like released, like can operate without my sea daddy, holding on to his
Yeah,
pocket.
yeah.
And we, they ended up getting the Coast Guard ended up getting out there, right? But they had to go back to the aircraft carrier to get gas because they like were well over their bingo time. So the carrier that we were working with like steamed towards them. They went and got lily padded gas, but we were like, hey, we have two flight medics and a rescue swimmer on board. We were doing a CSAR event, so like we got all our med gear, all our drugs. Uh, let's like a training event. Like, hey, we'll go, and then whatever the Coast Guard sector here was like, send them. They're closer. They got plenty of gas. It was a bitch to get to this. We were navigating like little pockets of rain cells. We don't have terrain following radar or weather radar on the birds. Like we're literally like just dipping and diving around these like cells. And then this ship was fully lit up. They had like these lights going that looked like a discotheque thing. And big
Wow.
big open flat deck in the back of the mast. And we just hoisted myself and a swimmer down. And we're like, hey, what's, because they weren't even answering on the radio. Like, hey, what's going on? They had guys waving with like flares. We knew that they were there. And got down on the deck. They barely spoke any English, standard.
Yep.
And they had like one British dude who was really good, and like their captain spoke pretty good English, but he's like on the sat phone, yelling at all these people on the radio, not cooperating. And coming downstairs, they had three dudes. A boiler blew up, which ended up shooting like steam on all three of them. And one dude died instantly, and then the other two dudes had just like significant third degree schmelting burns. Like I say schmelting like Austin Powers, because it's very hard to describe like what that did to their skin, because like it wasn't burned like we normally see burns. It was like blistered skin that when you touched it, your hand indented like 4 inches.
Oh,
It
wow.
was just it was like that scene from We Were Soldiers, where like you could like peel everything like a really good marinated cooked chicken bone. Like that's what it looked like. So one guy had it to his face and his neck, face and neck, and then on his chest, on his arm, and like his ring was, he had a wedding ring on, and it was melted. Like it was flat gold on his finger. And that would
Wow.
like that like stood out to me. And then the other guy, he was the worst one. So I sent my buddy, the swimmer, over to the dude with the burns to the neck, because he was talking. So I'm like, all right, he's cool. He's talking, not worried about criking him. Cool. Went over to the other guy. Everything was burned on his body except he had a welder's bib on, because that's what caused the explosion. They were doing some work on the side of this like pipe next to this boiler, and he had this welding bib on, and the only thing that wasn't burned was nipple line down to his dick, and
Wow.
everything else had burned. So we ended up criking him. Uh, Ended up trying to get IVs on him, but like we couldn't. And this is 2008, so like the only IV or like IOs at the time we had were the fast ones that go on the chest.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
so I went to go like give him an IO, and the IO went through almost through his sternum. Like it was like pushing on like rubber bone.
Oh,
Um,
geez.
so I um I had a really good paramedic instructor. Um, she had been a nurse for like 40 years, and she was a nurse paramedic. And I remember her saying, in a last ditch effort, there's always the main vein. So I like across like the billboard that's on my forehead as I'm stressed out sweating, I was like, I wonder if I can do a dick IV on this guy.
Oof.
So yeah, it worked. It's, and people call me bullshit. There's a couple Rangers and 160th flight medics and a couple SAR corpsmen have called bullshit. It works because we tested it out in the back of a Walmart parking lot in the middle of Georgia doing RMTs. So yeah, I dropped them off at it's got a different name now, but it's the Level 1 Trauma Center. It used to be called Pitt Memorial in North Carolina.
Okay.
It's Greenville now, but I dropped him off. He ended up going up to Baltimore to Johns Hopkins to the burn unit, and
Yeah.
I don't know what happened after that, but I remember turning him over in the ER. Like, you said you had IV access, and I was like, like pointing down, and they were like, "Oh, you got a femoral line, or you got an IO," and I was like, "A little bit higher." And the nurse pulled it up and just saw this like 18 gauge in this dude, top of this dude's, junk, and she goes, "What the?" She's like,
Oh
"What kind?"
my God.
She's like, "What kind of bushcraft medicine are you guys doing?" And then I yeah, it says I call that a medevac, or we called it a rescue because we had to like hoist them off. We put both of them in the litter. Um, we only had one litter, but one guy got in the old school basket that we used to have.
Okay.
But they both did pretty good. It was a shit show, man. We were on the ship for like an hour, and then by the time we got back, the Coast Guard was there, and they were like, "We'll hoist them out," and I was like, I'm not trying to be a dick. Like, we're on the radio with the antenna where you have the flabby push button, and I'm like holding it, like screaming. I'm like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was like, I'm not trying to be a dick, but like this patient, the one you could take the other guy, but like this guy, he's staying with me, like 100%. We're bagging him, pissing fluid into him.
Yeah.
I
Wow.
I actually opened up my med kit. I didn't have pain meds. I had everything else but pain meds. And I had remembered that they wouldn't let us check them out for whatever reason.
Because it
Uh,
was a training flight
it
prior
was
to
a it was
that.
a it was a it was a training
That's,
flight. Yeah.
yeah. No, I can
So
totally get that. I hope that
yeah,
rule has changed.
yeah, we have them on us all the time now,
Good.
and that started after, but it was I probably could have fought to get it, but like I just in my mind, so I did some backwoods things to control his pain, some things that would get me in trouble by my medical director if I said it out loud, but he got some doses to make him sleepy time, but I was some other meds, but he did pretty good. But the next I got back to the ship, and we were only on there for a couple of days. And the next day, we got a actual rescue, beat the Coast Guard out to it, and one of my swimmers got the Navy and Marine Corps medal for hoisting down in 20-foot seas. And then so like
What?
what we did the night before completely got deleted out of their minds because they're like, "Yo, he got a real rescue. He was in the
Oh.
water." Hanging from a ship, 20-foot seas. And I'm like, dude, we criped the guy last night. They didn't care. They didn't give a
No,
shit.
okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You're
And
yesterday's
then
dude. That was so
yeah,
yesterday.
that's exactly what happened. Yeah, nothing happened. So that was my first one, and then I went a good bit. We
Wow.
did a ton of medevacs, a lot of stuff in Iraq off the oil platforms.
Yep.
Um, and then yeah, didn't had some. It's hit or miss when you're operational. Like deploying.
Yeah.
Um, the primary is the mission, secondary is wherever you are, but good missions. And then I ended up going to a soft helicopter unit where our only job was CASEVAC. So a lot of good missions there. So yeah, the first one was a doozy though. It was like, what? I was like, man, all of them are gonna be like this. And then like my next medevac was like for a guy with like gonorrhea or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Like, this is
really?
boring. This is boring, dude. Yeah, I peaked early. Yeah,
Yeah, kind of happened to me too. That's all right. I didn't know.
yeah,
It was like the
yeah. I
first one
didn't.
was like, oh my God. And then after that, I'm like, oh, I thought they were all like that other one.
Dude, I was texting my boys because like we're all over the world, and I'm like,
Yeah.
at the time it's like MySpace. I'm like hitting them up. I'm like, you're never gonna fucking believe what I just did, dude. Like, they're like, dude, I haven't even flown yet, and I'm like, this is wild. And then yeah, nothing for a while. Lots
Oh
of
my
training
God.
stuff. Yeah, I'll
That's
tell you what,
hilarious.
I shot those trees tons of times because I got those bad out for. But yeah, the first one was a doozy. So
Yeah. No
yeah,
doubt. Dang, man. All right. So you know, there's a ton of people that are listening right now, like that want, I got to back up. You put
yeah,
an IV in this guy's junk?
yeah, yeah. So there's a couple guys who have like no shit, like hit me up like you're full of shit, like you're lying, and then they've like I sat them through and I talked to them about like the timeline, right? Because they're like, why didn't you just IO them? And I explained like, dude, it's 2008. All we have is fast one. Uh,
Yeah.
talk to some old school paramedics like that. That is a point of access that they were told to use back in the day. They do it on kids all the time, but higher up, like close to the umbilicus. But there's a really good vein there. But this
I
one
got to be
dude was
honest with you,
calling.
bro. That is not a spot that I really would have thought
Just
about.
just look at the top. It's always there. You don't even need a tourniquet. It flows. It flows pretty good. Uh, but
You know,
it
I'm gonna
was
check. I'm gonna check it out, and like right after we're done, I want to go. Oh, look at that!
you're like, someone's gonna come in and be like, what are you doing? I'm like, nothing. Leave
Yeah,
me alone.
I'm looking. I'm looking for a vein.
Yeah. It was to the point where like I had left conventional. I was at that soft command and someone had heard the story. And they were like, yo, that's the Dick IV medic. And like I love my fellow servicemen, but like one of the Rangers that was with us, he was a Ranger medic. He was like, that's full of shit. And I was like, well, if you get drunk enough, let's try it. And yeah, sure as shit. He was like 3 beers in, he was like, do it. He's like, I
Oh
want to
my
see.
god!
He's like, I want to see this get done. And I was like, let's go, boys. But and then
I
the
freaking love it.
the best was there may or may not have been a picture of this at one point, and it somehow made it to like an ORM brief that got briefed to our Commodore. Like it floated around
Oh,
like all. So like here they're like giving an ORM brief and they're like, yeah, like weapon safety, needle sticks, safety, and there's a picture of a dude in a van, like, with the IV bag going towards his junk.
oh
But
my god!
yeah, going back to that case, like I had nothing. I thought of in my mind, I thought about cutting down. I'd never done that before. I'd never done a cut down to find a vein.
Yeah,
I've heard of people talking about it. I know Sockums do it. At the time, I knew Sockums do it. And I was like, you know what? Let's just try it, and it worked. So
that's awesome.
yeah,
Well, all right.
yeah,
So, in all reality, and if you think like just from what you just briefed to me or the story, is if
yeah,
you've got a guy totally burned out, they're swelling all over you. You're going to be hard pressed to get a vein anyway, without an
yeah. So
IM.
I tried everything. AC, like up or high on the arm. I looked on the chest. Chest was melted. I'm a huge fan of EJs, right? Like
Yeah.
love them. But I had to crike through like an inch and a half of tissue. So
Oh
I
God.
would have had to like I would have never known if it was there because his neck was so swollen.
Yeah.
Um, he had like someone showed me a picture of him before. He had a butt chin. You would have never have known because it was just so swollen out. Um,
Jeez. Oh man.
but I think from time of blast to time that we got there was like 35 minutes because we were already like
Wow.
doing stuff. So
That's actually not too bad.
yeah, but it pays to be within like 60 miles of that ring already.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
Wow.
we were pretty far out there, which it was a pretty good stretch for E City. But it was good.
Good for
It was a
you
good one.
guys, man.
That was a good
Holy,
one.
that's a way to
Yeah.
start a career.
One time we sneak in there to get one from the Coast Guard. Every other time it's like they're like drifting in
Yeah,
there.
that's right.
Yeah.
Where you at, Navy?
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. In the Dolphin, in their little
Yeah.
Ferrari. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
God, I love it. Dude, that's hilarious. What a good
Yeah.
case, man.
Yeah. It
I'll
comes
tell you
up
what.
every once in a while.
Well, I'm thanks for bringing it up here, man, because that's like everybody has their first, and it's like I don't know. I call it like the first girlfriend, like your first love.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah,
Yeah.
you never forget
Yeah.
that.
I
It
never
sticks
forget
with
it,
you.
dude. Ryan and I joke all the time because like someone will say something. I'm like, I'll be 70 years old with dementia, but I'll remember that. Like, I'll be in my chair pooping on myself, and I'll remember that. He was like, yeah,
Oh God,
I'll remember the Dick IV for sure. So
that's hilarious. Dude, I
yeah,
love it. I love it. All right, well, let me get into one of the award cases that you received here, and I'm going to hammer down. I'm going to read this. This is, and I'm going to go in chronological order. And just for
yep.
everybody's knowledge, we're going to go over 5. Ooh, buddy, I'm
Ooh,
excited.
yeah.
So let me read this one, and then let's get the recap. The President of the United States takes pleasure in presenting the Air Medal with Bronze Star for first award to Hospital Corpsman First Class Wayne N. Papalski, United States Navy, for service set forth in the following: citation for heroic achievement while participating in aerial flight, while flying as search and rescue medical technician on H-60 aircraft assigned to Naval Air Station Woodby Island during a search and rescue mission on Mount Stewart, Washington, on 5 June 2014. Petty Officer Papalski's forward-thinking, superior airmanship, and unmatched medical experience were vital in the successful rescue of a stranded and critically injured hiker. Upon her successful extraction by Firewood 58, he delivered life-saving care to treat the survivor's skull fracture, intracranial bleeding, occluded artery, arm broken in 4 places, and extensive facial trauma. Undeterred by obstacles, Petty Officer Papalski's demonstrated superior technical capacity and skill to safely effect the high-altitude rescue in close proximity to the near vertical rock cliff, which left zero margin for error. His efforts saved a life where other crews and aircrafts could not. By his skillful airmanship, steadfast aggressiveness, and exemplary devotion to duty in the face of hazardous flying conditions, Petty Officer Papalski reflected great credit upon himself and upheld the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service. Bro, that is legit. Up in a mountain, like, holy cow, life-saving. So occluded artery, intracranial bleeding, broken arm in 4 places. What the hell?
Yeah, dude, if you ever make it to Washington, Mount Stewart's a beautiful mountain. It's a super deadly mountain. And like anyone who flies around there, so Yakima, Dustoff, Chelan County, King County Sheriff, Snowhawk, so Snohomish County, they're all like civilian sheriffs that have helos, and then the Navy and the Coast Guard. Like if you hear Mount Stewart come across your page, or that's like where the spot beacon is, everyone's like, because it's just she's an angry lady. She's always angry. There's never a time she's not windy, hot. Like it could be middle of winter and they have that weird inversion layer, and it's like, you're in Gore-Tex and a goose down, like getting ready to hoist out, and like you hit that inversion layer, like God, it's 50 degrees and our power just spiked. Like what the fuck? So
wow.
Yeah, she's a pill, man, for sure.
Well, give us what happened with this case?
Yeah,
so you get launched out for just
so that specific thing is one of 2. So she fell from this there's a false summit there. If you look at the mountain, most of the pictures are always the south looking north, because that's where it's more pretty, and then the north side is all like super steep technical rock climbing. you can crag up on the southeastern side, and they were up there, and she slipped down this like little glacier chute and fell about 800 feet, slid 800 feet, playing pinball with everything down.
Oh my God.
That happened on a Thursday night, or a Thursday afternoon. The winds were too unsteady for Snohomish County. I love Snohomish County. Bill Christorf's a phenomenal pilot. I got some buddies that fly there now. That mountain is a little bit too much for their Huey sometimes. So they it was right around 8,500 feet, maybe a little higher. I can't remember the exact altitude. Wow. And we were doing SAR jumps that night, Thursday night, and we were in the middle of like resetting around pinky time, getting ready to do nighttime deployments, and air traffic control was like, "Hey, swap your call sign from Firewood to Rescue. We got a mission for you." We're like, "Oh shit, game on, boys!" And we had a lull period for a bit. We hadn't had a good rescue since January. We had a couple, like we call them pregovacs, but we had a couple medevacs for a bit, and then we were getting the details, and they're like, Mount Stewart, 8,500 feet. We're like, oh shit. So we launched out there. Ended up seeing her like immediately when we got there. It was about a 35-minute, 40-minute transport or transit time. They heard you could hear the helo, 10 miles out, because it's just mountains, so it's just echoing. So they had their helmet light going, strobe light going, and we could see them clear as day, almost at the summit. And we made an approach. Bird started shaking, tail kicked a little bit, and they're like, don't like it. So the pilots drifted off, came back, and the winds were just crazy, like wild, like gusts of anywhere from like 40 to 50. Aircraft couldn't get stable, power spiking up and down. And these 2 pilots at night, phenomenal dudes. We were just like, let's just go get a ground search party and put them in somewhere lower on the mountain or as close to them as we can. They'll hike to them and then maybe they can move them down. So we picked up 2 professional rescuers from Chelan County. When we went to go put them in, like about 500 feet below them, and we were coming into a hover, they're like, man, hover feels great. And then just a fucking downdraft came and we lost tail rotor authority, tail kicked to the left about almost 180 degrees.
Oh my God.
They dropped the collective, scooped out off the mountain, and everyone was like, we're not doing that again. Like, we're over it, dude. Like, so we ended up putting them in at 5,000 feet and they climbed up the rest. Got to them. We went home, refueled. Day shift came on at 7. At that specific time, I only had 1 flight medic. That was me. The other guy was on leave, and we were like a port and starboard like duty section.
Okay.
So I had already exceeded my flight hours for a 24-hour period. They had to go to the CO because we got paged back out around 7:15 in the morning. They're like, we're ready for pickup. They got them. They got her. They moved her down about 100 feet. The winds have come down. It's hot out. Come get us. And the CO was like, just go. Just his exact words to us were like, you can go, but you can't hoist. So like
you can't manipulate the aircraft hoist, or you can't get on the hoist.
I can't get on the hoist.
Okay.
So we would fly, because our only job there was search and rescue. We would fly with a dedicated crew chief, a dedicated flight medic, and a dedicated ground rescue tech. We call him a HIRA, a helicopter inland rescue air crewman, so a ground tech. So we opted to send the HIRA down. And our SOP was someone injured on the ground, the medic always goes first. So we're dual qualified. We're HIRAs and we're medics. So I was tired, man. Like I was up all that day, flew that mission until 4 a.m. And then I was like, cool, not go down. Got it. There's a video of it floating around somewhere. And I got some pictures of it, but it was a 190-foot hoist that turned into a DD.
A DD, direct deployment? Direct
deployment, yeah. So he just went down and slipped it on and cinched it on her, cinched the strap on her. There's some pictures of her like on the ground, but like she's got obvious facial trauma on because there's some like ground rescue techs there. And her arm was mangled and they sling and sloughed it to her body. You can't see any of the breaks. But my buddy Corey, who is the crew chief for one of the rescues we're going to talk about here in a little bit, he was the HIRA that went down, dual hats, that qualification. And 190-foot hoist. They came in, slid in, picked her up in a strap. Yeah, he was in his harness. He was wearing his harness. He got her in the strap. Yeah.
She must have been miserable.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She was screaming the whole way up, but she was happy to be off the mountain. So
true statement.
I think if he would have tried to do a litter or anything else, the winds were just too unpredictable.
Gotcha.
So especially at that amount, like any rescuer who's like, oh, Stuart, they'll always be like, ugh. So it was just like, get in, get off, get out real quick. So we got her up into the bird. It was seamless, man. Like it was on. Like they did a couple of routes. Jared Wada, Cole Heller were our pilots. Phenomenal pilots. Very, very aggressive. They're risk adverse, but they were very, very aggressive, which I like. But they were safe and dumped fuel. They dumped about 1,000 pounds of fuel to make weight. And then we actually landed to kick out a bunch of gear in the park. And then dumped about 900 pounds of gear and then came back, hoisted her out. And I remember getting her into the aircraft. She was coming up about halfway to the door, right when that like detent from the aircraft slows the hoist down. And I looked at her and I was like, holy shit, like this is not good. So she gets in, closed the cabin door. Fun fact, did not know this at the time because like I had cut clothes off people in Afghanistan before that had goose down, but never like under a rotor arc. Cut her puff off in the bird.
Oh
Because
my God.
they tied all this stuff all over her. So it was like, her arm was slung up like this, and you can see bleeding coming through her jacket. So I was like, all right, like let's take a look at it. And I cut it, and instantly when I cut it, feathers went everywhere. And our pilots were like, do we just have a bird strike? And and Corey's like, no, fucking Wayne cut this chick's jacket. And I was like, oh damn, I'm sorry, dude. So but funny moment. But yeah, she had a humerus break, a mangled elbow, her AC joint was separated, and like depending on how she moved her arm, it would like occlude like her radial. Like, so we like manipulated. I gave her a shit ton of ketamine, but I gave her a ton of meds. I repositioned her arm to like where I could feel a good radial pulse, and then
Yeah.
held it. I had them hold that in that spot and make her a splint. And like, so it ended up being like this weird position like this. And that's how
Yeah.
she had a
Like
radial
it's
pulse. And we
like
just
just
outstretched
or
and
the shoulder elevated and
yep.
holding up. Yeah.
And she stayed like that for the whole 30-minute flight to the trauma center. But it was when I took her helmet off, like one of our pilots at the time, he'll tell you this, Cole Heller will tell you this if you ever talk to him, but like he was looking back in the cabin, and it was right when I took her helmet off, and he goes, oh, like on the ICS, her all of this was black, and her eye was coming out of her socket.
Oh,
Um,
what?
yeah. So
Wow.
I was like, hey boys, like they had an ambulance ready for us. I was like, we're going right to the trauma center right now. Don't stop. Don't turn. They had the life flight going to, and that kind of pissed them off because they were hoping to get that mission. And I was like, no, like just keep going. We're gonna waste time turning her over. So I gave her Versed, ketamine, and then we started hyperventilating her a little bit. She was compensating like pretty well. We didn't have end tidal at the time like we do, like we have the Emma caps now.
Yep.
But
Nice.
I put her on the nasal cannula, and her end tidal was like she was self hyperventilating, and her end tidal was like 37, and her pressure was like 160. So I was like, all right, you have a head thing, but like you're not herniating, so like cool. So we got
Yeah.
access, gave her meds. Once we calmed her down, her pressure came down a little bit, but she got like 130 of ketamine over the whole trip, and then she got 5 of Versed,
Wow.
and then turned her over. But it was just we finished that call, and then we had to go back and get the rescuers because they got stuck on this like pinnacle they couldn't get off of. So we had to go back and pick up the Chelan County rescue dudes and hoist them out. So from start to finish, from the day before to then, it was like 28 hours. I think I logged 18 hours of flight time, like
Holy cow.
like actual flight time.
Jeez.
So
Oh man.
yeah, it was a good one. Corey did a phenomenal job. Like that hoist was almost bottomed out because we only have a 200-foot hoist. So
Wow.
yeah,
Dude, that's crazy. For everybody that doesn't know out there, so end tidal CO2 is measuring the CO2 that's coming out that we're breathing out. It's registering on the machine. Off the top of my head, ready, Wayne? 35 to 45 is the normal
yeah,
range. So if
30,
you're, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, 35 to 45 is your normal. If it's higher than 45, you're either not breathing right, or you're acidotic, and if you're or you're holding on to your waist. And then if you have someone with a head injury, you want those numbers lower because it causes cerebral vasoconstriction, which limits the amount of blood going to your brain.
Yeah.
So
Look at
it's just a
you,
good way
man.
to yeah. I'm in medical refresher right now. I'm teaching medical
So
refresher right now, so it's hot.
yeah, but
It's
I was
hot.
gonna say all that.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
happy you were
yeah,
like,
yeah. It just flows so freely. Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah.
No, nice. So, but yeah, well, that's, I mean, because you mentioned, she had a end-tidal CO2 of about a 34, 37,
Yeah,
somewhere in
30,
there,
37. Yeah.
37.
So
So
she was
she's in a good spot. Yeah.
yeah, I think I was saying, like, looking at it now, especially I teach the community that I teach medics in now, because I'm an instructor. They like, hey, pain's a big deal to them, but she was in such pain, she was taking short breaths, so she was hyperventilating herself. I didn't
Yeah.
need to do it. She was doing it for herself. And then when we gave her the med, she kind of calmed down a little bit, and her pressure came down. But
Wow. Nice.
Yeah, it was definitely she was walking herself towards getting rapid sequence innovation. If she would have kept like not doing well, we would have RSI'd her in the bird. So
Wow. All right. So the only other thing that I want to touch on with this is the fact that you guys used a quick drop. Wow. All right. Now,
yeah,
full disclosure. I was not on scene. Okay. I am not the
yeah.
one making the call. But I love to debrief. So
I believe it is a quick drop.
okay.
I was not. I believe it was. We have a few. I was up there. I checked in. I became the LPO, and then I ended up being the chief up there. I made chief while I was there. We had like,
Congratulations.
oh yeah, thanks, dude. We had like, I don't know, almost 300 rescues while I was there as a total, as a collective,
Yeah.
as a community. 10 of those were DDs with quick drops, holding physical friction on the friction adapter, not putting the
Yeah.
diaper strap on.
Wow.
It works if they're conscious,
Yeah.
not a good tool if they're not. Yeah.
I knowing what I know now today, I don't think I would have used that piece of gear. I think I would have used like a CMC hot seat or the new LSC
So
harness.
we didn't have those at the time.
And
So
I agree because this is 14. It's 2014.
yeah. So
It's old school, but
right 2 months after this rescue, we had another female, and it is one of the reasons that the CMC has an airworthiness letter. Side tangent for people who are interested, but we used to have the life-saving rescue vest where you had to slide their legs into it like a diaper
oh yeah, yeah.
and then put it over her. But her arm was so mangled, he didn't want to put it in because she had to have both arms in it like this, so she wouldn't be able to be in it correctly.
Got
He
it.
was able to get the strap underneath her, right? We actually induced harm on a chick. Like her feedback to us was, I wish you would have put me in the basket or the litter because the vest hurt her so bad. And then we used to have to
Wow.
cut them off of people. So we're spending $400 on something that you slip on them and you had to cut it off. And now the CMC harness, it's just enclosed on them. You can undo it and they come out of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
At that time, those devices, they were either not approved for flight or they did not exist yet.
Right on.
So
Wow.
that's one of the reasons we didn't use it. But yes, I concur. I would have used something vastly different.
Yeah, just now, and I just want to put that out there for everybody else. I
Yeah.
mean, again, I was not on scene. That was not my call. I didn't. You guys know you had the gear in the aircraft, but just thinking about that with all the injuries that she has, like, whew, gnarly,
Yeah.
gnarly.
Yeah, it was
God,
a good
good
one.
job, man, to you and your crew.
Yeah.
Freaking badass.
Yeah.
All right.
Pilots crushed it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Dude, the fact that even the tail kicking out because you get the downdraft, you get to fly out of that. You know, how many
Yeah.
accidents have we seen from different videos of all of a sudden an aircraft comes into a mountain too close, downdraft, takes them out of the air into the mountain.
There's that one floating around the internet right now, that Huey coming in on that Pinnacle, and like
Oh yeah,
comes in, flares, and just tail rotor authority gone,
totally. All right, let's go to the next one, dude, because I'm digging this already. Here we
Yeah.
go. The President of the United States takes pleasure in presenting the Navy and Marine Corps Medal to Hospital Corpsman First Class Wayne Papalski for service set forth in the following citation: for heroism while serving as Naval Hospital Oak Harbor as a search and rescue corpsman on board Rescue 75, a Navy 860 helicopter. On November 15, 2014, Pastor Papalski and his crew were launched for an emergency search and rescue mission involving an injured skier disabled on the face of Mount Shushkin. At tremendous risk of his own life, Pastor Papalski rappelled 200 feet from the helicopter to the ground, braving the harsh elements, including dangerously high winds, freezing rain, and sub-zero temperatures. In the pitch black, covered in darkness, he traversed over 100 yards across a perilous landscape, navigating through swift water, flowing ice or uneven terrain, icy rocks, and fallen trees to reach the critically injured survivor, all while battling the freezing cold and his own debilitating hypothermia. Once on scene, Pastor Papalski provided immediate life-saving treatment to stabilize his patient, and then carried the incapacitated skier on his back over the same extremely dangerous terrain from where he had come to reach the safe extraction point. After being hoisted 195 feet and back into the helicopter, Papalski administered the expert medical care that most assertedly saved the life and limb of the severely injured patient. By his courage and prompt actions in the face of great personal risk, Papalski prevented the loss of life, thereby reflecting great credit upon himself and upholding the highest traditions of the United States Naval Services. Wayne, what the? Bro,
Yeah,
this is the same year.
The same year, yeah. A couple months later, yeah. We had some good ones in between there, but this one was I will forever remember this case and remember the look on this kid's face. But it was late. The sheriff called my phone. I won't say his name because of what he does now, but he called. We have a phenomenal relationship with the sheriffs up there, and this was in Whatcom County. He calls. He goes, "Hey, Wayne, what are you doing?" I was like, "I'm giving my kids a tub right now. It's almost bedtime, but I'm like, putting water on their head. They're like 3 and 4.
Little bubble bath going on.
Yeah, bubble
little
bath.
Rubber
Yeah,
duckies floating all around.
that's exactly what happened. He goes, "Hey, I got this dude calling saying his buddy fell. They were cross country skiing, and I guess they were coming back, and like there was like a small, not a landslide, but the entire what they were walking on shifted off the side of a cliff. So either the snow moved or they lost their trail. They were following, like, I think they were following a game trail, and like they just walked off a cliff. But he said, hey, he heard this guy screaming in pain, and he hasn't heard him anymore. I think he's dead. But his spot beacon is actively going off. Can you guys take a look?" And I was like, "Yeah, call the ODO and get a submission number, and we'll we'll go." And I prepped the crew and told them what was going on, and then and they I remember we flew out there. We were all like, "We're picking up a dead body, boys." You know what I mean? Like, it's freezing cold. We like Google Earthed it, like where he was. It was like a waterfall thing, and he's like right where the spot beacon was a waterfall. So I'm like, either he's dead or he's frozen, or he drowned. And sure as shit, man, we like get into the hover. We're like doing a pass, and we see a light and like an arm, like this.
Oh my God!
Like in my mind at the time, it was like the fly, like, "Help me," like this. And I was like, I couldn't even, like, I was like, "Dude, he's alive!" Like I just like pointed and like grabbed. So the same dude who went down on the hoist, Corey Hedges, he was my crew chief for this flight. Wild guy. So he's like, giving vectors, calling him in, coming into a hover. And right at the time we came in on a hover, we saw a fire literally at the top of where like a small campfire, like where this was. That was the guy who called.
Wow.
So we see him, the guy in this ravine moving. I see the dude over here. He's not injured. I'm like, "Hey, Corey, put me down on the ground right here." And we have at Whidbey and some of our other inland commands, we have the ability to rappel 250 feet, and another smaller rappel line, and we can hoist. And this can be a whole diatribe with other people. I know you had Rob on here a little bit ago, and I love talking with him. In technical wooded terrain, it's unsafe to be hoisted sometimes because you have no control of your descent.
Yep.
And clobbering the radios when the pilots are making adjustments is unsafe RM and CRM. So we control our own descent. So, and then plus on nods, like the terrain is never what it seems. So I was like, "Hey, let me rappel, and if it doesn't work, short haul me to that clearing and then hoist me out." So we're like, "Cool." So I hoisted down, and I rappelled down, and I'm like, we did a bagless, so the bag's on me, and like I'm almost out of rope. I'm like, "Holy shit, this is a long rappel." It was a little over 200 feet, and got on the ground, and I was about 30 yards away from him. But to get to him, I had to climb around him, up these like water rocks and like scale a fallen tree and then come back down. So it was a little bit farther. But just imagine being in a very, very narrow 10-meter to like ravine,
Yeah.
rock wall on either side of
Yeah.
you, and you're in a flowing river. That's what we were in. And it was
Oh my
November
God.
with snow and ice. And Mount Shuxon is right next to Mount Baker in the North Cascades. She looks like the Matterhorn a little bit,
Okay.
and all of that water is glacier water. It's just up 2,000 feet above you is a glacier, and it's literally just waterfalls down to that. So it was pretty cold. It took me a bit to get to them. I'm not gonna lie, everything that I did was unsafe. Like 100. Like looking back now as a dad and like replaying that in my mind, should not have done that. Probably should have got a ground crew to come in and rappel in behind him. But like climbing up in your flight and rescue gear, icy, jagged rocks, trying to like crag those and boulder those rocks, not where you want to be when Jesus comes, kind of thing. So I
Oh my gosh.
I ended up making it to him. He was sitting in a watering hole, freezing cold water, couldn't move. Like, hey bud, what's up? He was like barely talking. I was like, let's get you out of that water. Like just being all calm, you know.
Yeah.
Picked him up, put him. I laid my med bag down, set out like some gear for him to sit on, sat him on the med bag, cut some of his clothes off, and then I put him in a space blanket. Had real nasty lacerations to his leg. He had his like telly boots on, and they completely ripped off of his leg and sliced his foot open.
Oh.
But the water was so cold he wasn't bleeding, so his
Oh,
foot was just
nice.
his foot was just sitting in it. And once it came out of the water, it instantly started bleeding. So I got him out of that. Did a quick trauma assessment. His nose was broken. He had some lax on his head. He was cold, dude. Like I got a rectal temp on him in the aircraft. The rectal temp on him in the aircraft was 88. So
Oh
I don't
my
know.
Lord.
I don't know what it was sitting in the water, or just sitting down there. And he was like, it's like sea spray, you know, waterfall spray on him, and like,
Yeah.
you know,
For everybody out
falling.
there, 88 is really, really cold.
Yeah,
But to have a core
the doc
temperature of 88, that's not good.
the doctor asked me how he was alive, and I was like, ask him, dude. I don't know. Like, ask him. Will to live? I don't know. He was 17 at the time, so you know, the body could take a lot, but lifted him up out of there. We did bring the rescue vest this time.
Hey.
I slipped him in the vest. I got it on, and I was like, hey Corey, I'm ready for pickup. And he's like stand by, I'm mid hoist right now. So they were hoisting the other guy out like right at that time. I couldn't hear anything but waterfall in there, and we have a really good radio system. So I was hearing him, but I couldn't hear the helo off Peltors. And he's like, hey, coming back in, ready for pickup. Cover him up. We're gonna hoist to you. Turn your strobe on. I turned my strobe on, my helmet on, and then he like immediately, like, hey, I can't get to you. He's like, where you're at, there's no way to get the bird to you. And the trees are 100 feet above you, and you're about 90 feet down where you're at.
Holy shit.
So they would have had to re-rig another rappel rope and drop it down to me, and then I would have we'd have to clip in for a short haul. But even then, the trees were over us. There was no way to get the rope to drop the rope down to us.
Wow.
So I was like, hey, I'll move. And I looked at him, I was like, hey, can you walk? And he was like out at this point, like just not, he was just sleeping. Like he was like, and I like alert to painful stimuli. So I picked him up and put him on my back, and fireman carried him down that same fucking terrain that I had just climbed up, and fell in chest deep freezing water. Foot slipped, fell in chest deep freezing water, kept him out of the water. And I talk about hypothermia when I teach this to people. Like, I know we have cold weather training in Alaska, and the Coast Guard has their own stuff. That instant feeling of water that is below freezing, that cannot freeze because it's moving too fast, is like getting stabbed in the chest with a sharp knife.
Oh yeah.
It was the most excruciating pain I've ever had in my life. And I had him on my back, fell in the water, and then went down to this other spot that I looking at it, I thought that the bird can get to me. Corey gets on the radio, more bad news. Like, hey bud, can't get to you. And I was like, you're really killing me here, bud. So
Corey,
still,
come on,
yeah.
Corey.
I'm like, Corey, let's get it together, dude. So I had my strobe on, and I was like, hey, where do you want me to go? I can't go any farther down. There's a waterfall. I can because I can see it. Like it looks and it drops off. And he's like, yeah, don't go that way. Can you come about 20 yards behind you and then walk to the other side of the ravine? And I said, yeah, I can do that. And I was like, it's pretty deep water, so just like keep an eye on me kind of deal. And like guide me. And he's like, yeah, got you. So they're off over the waterfall in a hover, like a hoagie, looking at me.
Yeah.
So I have him back on my back, and I have to go back into that spot that I just like went chest deep water in. And I was like psyching myself up. I'm like, let's do it, boys. Like, boy, like, let's do it. And I had to like, it's so before I slipped and fell in, so it was a surprise. Now I'm like talking myself up in my head to like go back into that. And I was just like, just go. So I just jumped in and got stabbed in the chest again. And it was so painful, dude. Like, and if you're a man, you know exactly where I'm talking about, where it was painful. It was terrible. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So I made it over to that spot, and I'm like, Corey, clear for hoist, send the hoist down. He's like, yep, coming to you. So he's in a hover. If you ever talk to him, he had a tip of a tree right next to the main mount, like barely touching the main mount, which is. And then the pilot had a visual of one about a half a disc out of the rotor arc eye level with him holding a phenomenal hover, right? So like Corey's got a good visual, pilot's got a great visual. And he's like bottoming the hoist out, and the hoist stops. He's like, oh, I got a hoist failure. And he's like looking to see if he's got caution lights, and like looking over, checks the lights, and he's like, I got a hoist failure. But the hoist goes up. He goes, oh, no, I bottomed the hoist out. I don't have a hoist failure. I'm like, dude, the hook, I'm on the ground. The hook is right here.
Yeah, like
right,
eye level. You need level. 2 feet. You need 2 freaking feet.
I need 2 feet. So I was like, fuck, Corey, what can you do? She's like, hey, let me try doing this other thing. It was a little bit higher than it was like just above my head. So okay. I hear this on the radio. So he goes, back the bird up, 3, 2, 1. All right, don't freak out. Your tail's resting against a tree. It's totally fine. It's totally fine. But so this is exactly how he talks. So on the left side of the bird, because our tail rotor is on the right, there was a tree there. He used the stab and like gently pushed it over, and that like gave us the clearance to like move back. And now I stepped up on a perch, and now the hook was just about chin level. It's not enough for me to clip in. So I clipped him into the hook. I daisy chained his D-harness or his D-link, clipped him in, and then I clipped into him, which is 180 of what the pub says to do. Clip, he clips to me. So he clipped in, and then I clipped it. So he was the mom and I was the dad kind of thing. Like someone's got to be the mom, someone's got to be the dad. So secured him, and then ready for pickup. And Corey, we short hauled out to pull power because the pilot didn't want to be hoisting that whole time next to that tree. So they short hauled me out, and so I was clear of that tree, and then he reeled me in. And then honestly, like in the bird, there was no real medical care other than warm IV fluids, got him in an HPMK or a hypothermia management kit, and then I checked his rectal temp. When we got to the hospital, I kind of like hyped out a little bit. So we did the turnover, and then like they were looking at me like, you don't look good. And I was like, I don't feel so good. And they took me out of my gear, and Corey and my pilot remember this, and they wanted my ID to like load me in the computer system to like just load me as a patient. And they opened my wallet, and my wallet was frozen, and it ripped my CAC card, the plastic off my CAC card.
Oh,
so my 25 minutes after the flight, my fucking wallet was still frozen.
Wow.
So that's how cold it was. But yeah, he did a full recovery. Family was Air Force. They came and visited us. He had like some issues with his nose. He had to get like a surgery for his nose, but full recovery. And then yeah, we called that mission Papsicle because he was frozen. Yeah.
Oh my
But
God.
we were joking about training earlier. So we finished that mission, you know, you and your boys always talk. All your rescue swimmer classmates, you always talk. Whether you hate them or you like them, you always like rub dirt on it. And I texted Ryan and my other buddy, and I was like, Clayton Deese is never gonna let me live this down. I just fireman carried a dude 100 yards on my back for a rescue, and they were like, shut the hell up, dude. Because he would always be like, you never know when you got a fireman carry someone out of some burning woods, you know. And like, it was funny, dude. But
That's awesome.
yeah, it was a good one. It was a really good one.
Wow, well done to you and your crew.
Yeah, crew crush. Corey, I tell people this all the time. I'm like, they like read that award in front of me, and like they were like, hey, do you have any comments? And I was like, Corey had just saved my life, like point blank. Don't give a shit about me. Best crew chief we have, Corey Hedges. If he didn't move that bird, dude, I don't know how they would have had to send a ground crew in to get us, because there was no way to get out. So it was wild. Yeah, they crushed it.
Put the
Yeah, don't freak out. Don't freak out. Your tail's resting against a tree. Shit, Corey. It was one of those moments where it's like, hey, I want to see this, but I don't want to flip my nods down because I don't want to see it. So I'm just gonna leave my nods up. So yeah. I just left them up. So yeah.
Wow. Man, well done. Well done to you and the entire crew.
Yeah, crew crushed it. Yeah, they crushed it.
Gosh.
Corey crushed it. The other dude was uninjured too. It was just a 180-foot hoist to get him out of those trees. So
Still 180-foot hoist. But did they
yeah.
just send a basket down to go get him, or?
For him, we had another vest. So
okay, got it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
Whew, pretty badass, man. All right, I'm gonna go to the next one because this is kind of cool. So you, you and your crew earned a the Naval NHA Naval Helicopter Association Award in 2015 for Region 1, non-deployed. So here's the write-up. Hospital Corpsman First Class, Wayne Papalski, United States Navy, for service set forth in the following citation. For sustained superior airmanship while operating Firewood 91, assigned to Naval Air Station Woodby Island Search and Rescue on 14 and 15 June of 2015. The crew of Firewood 91 demonstrated exceptional courage and tenacity in their search and rescue efforts following a distress call from a stranded and critically injured climber who had fallen down a cliff near Kolchak Lake, Chelan County, Washington. Undeterred by obstacles, the crew demonstrated superior skill and technical capacity during an extraordinary nighttime rescue, high altitude, in close proximity to vertical rock cliff, which left zero margin for error. Despite the perilous conditions and aircraft limitations while operating in the search, the crew of Firewood 91 safely and successfully executed the rescue where other rescue crews' aircrafts could not. The crew of Firewood 91 outstanding airmanship, devotion, and duty reflect great credit upon themselves and were keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Naval Helicopter Association. Bro, awesome. Dude, I love this stuff.
Dude, yeah, it's funny, like, a lot of the guys in the community know me. Like, I don't tout these a lot. I'm one of our like senior peers in our community now. Like, you know, you survived your way up.
So for the record, most of us don't talk about this, and I have to drag it out of every one of you. All right.
Yeah. I don't, like, they sit in a book and they're there, and I don't go, oh, hey, look what I have, you know, and I hate wearing my uniform. But hearing them, I'm like, oh, that's fucking cool, dude. Like, we did that.
Yeah, right.
We did that.
That's why I love reading this stuff. I love you.
I had to look this one up because it was just in there and I didn't remember reading it or having it. It was very technical, it was very wild, but what happened 24 hours after was even crazier. We just got told, go pick this guy up right now. Like that's all we got. ODO called us and was like, go pick this dude up right now. This is where he's at. Just Google Kolchak Lake. It is the number one hiking spot besides Rattlesnake Ledge in like Western Washington in the Puget Sound, or in the Cascades, I should say, because it's not in Puget Sound. People travel all over just to go to this fucking lake and take pictures.
Wow.
And there's another right above the lake is Asgard Pass, right? So like Asgard, beautiful crag bouldering, just near vertical, like literally climbing up a ladder.
Awesome. Love
This
it.
dude, he was he put an anchor in he fell, dislocated his knee. He was on a pinnacle. Got to him. It was like Lear rock face, but he was like on like the Lion King, holding Simba out. Like that's what this pinnacle looked like.
Okay.
But it had a good arch to it, a good slope to it, I should say. And he had an anchor in with some flat rope holding him. He was like in his harness, being held in by that anchor. So our SOP is, if you have a harness, I'm clipping into the harness. Like I'm not putting you in anything else. It's there, right?
Sure.
That's what and I'll look at it, and I always bring a vest with me, but I'll look at it and then like, oh shit, it's still intact. It takes a lot for a harness to get chopped up and not like be usable. So we tried to hoist directly down to him, but there was like near vertical rock face. So we were able to hold the hover about 10 feet over him. So like from where he's laying, he was eye level with the cabin, but the blades were like 10 feet above him.
Wow,
So
okay.
he's like looking up mid river arc. And I hoisted down, and I stayed attached to the hoist the entire time. So like a DD, but I climbed up to him, and got to him, and he was conscious. Like, hey, what's up, dude? He's like, get me the fuck out of here. I was like, Roger that. It's like,
love it,
like,
dude. I love it.
If Uber was around, I'd be like, did you call an Uber? Like I always like to mess with them, and I clipped into him. I clipped into him, and I was like, hey, I got on the radio. I was like, hey, I'm clipped. When you're ready to hoist, I want you to pull power and pull me away from the rock wall, because I didn't want to slide off the rock. I wanted to like short haul up and away to the left. But he was still attached to the wall, and his anchor was like beyond my reach. So I said, hey, you're about to go on a roller coaster ride. It's going to be wild. And I think I said something like, it's like a sex swing, but don't think like that. And he like looked at me, and I took my knife out, and I cut the flat rope, and we just like flew away. We just offset off the wall, and we like swung a little bit. They came into a 20-foot or a 20 knot creep, stabled out, and then like hoisted us up.
Love
He
it.
was fine, man. I gave him a little bit of pain meds. I think I gave him like fentanyl, because fentanyl works phenomenal for orthopedic stuff. And we always used to drop them off and like call to get like an update. Like, hey, the nurses love, like anytime the Coast Guard and the Navy comes in, they're like, oh, so like we
Love
would
it.
always call and be like, hey, can I get a patient status update? And the nurse was like, hey, we don't have a patient here by that name. And I was like, well, I know you do, because I just dropped them off 30 minutes ago. And she said, listen, the only way patients are unregistered out of our system, and we hold records for 20 years, is if they pass away or someone physically removed them from the computer system. And I said, oh, well, I know you didn't pass away. So interesting. A week later, I get a letter from the U.S. Marshal Service saying, thank you for rescuing our dude. He's totally fine, and we appreciate everything you did for us. So,
Oh, snap. That's badass, dude.
yeah, so I don't know what they were doing. Not whatever, but yeah, we picked up a marshal, and that explains the reason why they literally like go get him right now, like go. So yeah, I got a letter from the U.S. Marshal Service like, hey, thanks for rescuing me, appreciate it. I was like, I didn't even know. I was like, what the fuck's the marshals doing climbing, dude? You know what I mean?
All
Like,
right.
Yeah.
It's classified, sir. We can't tell you that.
Yeah. Roger that. You know, like, yeah.
Oh,
I was
dude,
like,
that's sick.
yeah. So yeah, it was pretty cool. He wasn't that injured. We had to climb to get him, and then you know, we always would come up with stuff on the fly as long as it was safe. But like the whole being, and then now, you know, the Petzl has that Lazard.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful kit.
Yeah, but
Dude.
that essentially what I did, or what he was tethered into the rock, and us cutting it was that device releasing off of the rock wall.
Yep.
You know, so it's like it's the same thing. So we did a rescue like that. But yeah, he had all the right gear. So right gear every time saves your life. He had all the right gear. So just daisy chained into him, clipped into my harness, and then cut it and flew off.
God.
So yeah. It was we call
Bro.
that in the shop, we used to call those gentlemen's rescues because they were like very, very non-technical, you know.
Yeah.
That didn't have to bust open the med bag a bunch, but
Yeah, but that's not your typical
yeah.
like go out and grab them rescue. I mean,
Well, usually like
yeah.
they would give us info about the spot beacon, or like especially if it's a inReach beacon, like, you know, we would get the number and we can text them.
Yeah.
And we got nothing. You got a location, go pick him up now, call us when it's over. Roger that. Like very yeah. Black man in a or black suit and a tie in the middle of the desert. My name is
Yeah.
Joe. All right, Roger
Yeah.
that, you know. So yeah.
And what last name? Smith. Roger
Yeah,
that.
Smith. Yeah. Oh, Joe Smith. Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Met one in Nam, right? Yeah. Yeah. 18. Yeah. It
Oh
was
my
good.
God, dude. Freaking love it. All right. I'm going to the next one because I'm loving these. All right. The President of the United States takes pleasure in presenting the Navy and Marine Corps Medal, Gold Star in lieu of second award to Petty Officer First Class, Wayne Papalski, for service set forth in the following citation for heroism while serving as Naval Air Station Whidbey Island, Washington on 24 January 2016. Petty Officer Papalski's superior leadership, unmatched determination, steadfast courage, and incomparable skill in the face of the vast personal danger were critical to the successful rescue of a backcountry skier caught in multiple avalanches, battling below freezing temperatures, unstable ice boulders, near vertical terrain, and the imminent threat to subsequent avalanches. He courageously took charge and rappelled to the position of the stranded, critically injured skier. Immediately assessing the situation as dire, Petty Officer Papalski found extensive injuries that required the use of a hoisting vest to secure the survivor. Utilization of the vest was extremely difficult due to the patient's size, ski gear, waning consciousness, apparent head injury, and the wet and freezing conditions. Once on board the rescue helicopter, Petty Officer Papalski administered critical advanced life support services while suffering from cold-induced lack of dexterity in his own extremities. An exceptional provider, he quickly determined traditional intravenous insertion would not be possible. He quickly performed an intraosseous cannulation utilizing veins in the leg, providing fluids vital to saving the patient's life. By his courageous and prompt actions in the face of great personal risk, Petty Officer Papalski reflected great credit upon himself and upheld the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service. Bro.
I'm excited to talk. I'm excited to talk about this one. It is sad when I kind of get into the story about what happened because someone passed away.
Okay.
I use this to talk to people about one, when you have bad calls, it's okay to talk about bad shit and get mental help. If you're in medicine long enough, you should probably be talking to someone because you're going to see something that's not right. And then two, I will send you the link. There's a video of this. So we were required to wear it during daytime. We would wear GoPros for QA QI. For training and real world missions, we would release footage if they would sign a consent form. I have video of this entire incident.
Wow, nice.
I share it with you. I just asked you not to share it with anyone when you see it. So again, like we have these amazing relationships with, your local civilian counterparts. And one of the Whatcom County or Bellingham Mountain Rescue guys, he works ski patrol at Mount Baker. So this is off of Mount Herman. From the parking lot of the ski lot, north lot at Mount Baker, you can see Mount Herman where they do their backcountry skiing. And he said, hey, we saw these two guys up on the mountain and then like heard an avalanche and we can't see them anymore. We're gonna send you a request for a page. And I said, cool. Do me a favor and just call them immediately right now, but have that guy that I told you I won't give you his name, that sheriff, have him call. And then, because if it comes from a law enforcement officer, it's an immediate launch kind of thing, because they're the ground or the on-scene commanders. So I said, hey, just have him call. And then I already prepped the crew. I'm like, yo, there was an avalanche. There was 2 people probably hurt. And let's get the going, boys. And as we were lifting off or taking off, and it's probably about a 20-minute flight for us, like cruising pretty fast. We got a text message that there was a second avalanche, and now they can see them. And it doesn't look good, is what they told us. They're both moving. One of them looks clearly injured, and they're together. So they were partially buried, and then they got hit with they were hit with an avalanche, and they were thrown into terrain, and then they got hit with a second avalanche, and then they were exposed in the middle of the mountain.
Wow.
So I over ICS is like, hey, homies, there's another avalanche, and it doesn't look good. I'm always joking, with them.
I love
and
it.
Yeah. And our 2 pilots that day, our aircraft commander, she's a great pilot. She's not in the Navy anymore, but she was like, I'm really concerned with you going down if there's avalanches. And I was like, yeah, I'm pretty concerned too. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to hoist. I'll rappel, and you guys maintain tension on the rope. And if you have to, and you see something, just fly away. Like just
Oh,
short
not
haul,
wow.
just short haul me.
Dude,
So
that's brilliant.
yeah, so I was like, just stay on the rope, and then especially because of the uneven snow boulders, I was like, I'll rappel, because it so you don't have to keep doing this.
Yeah.
I'll control my own descent. And we got into a hover, and right as we got into a hover, we saw snow, like a snow cloud, and they had just got hit with a third avalanche.
Oh, wow.
We had just missed it coming around the corner, and saw one guy down at the bottom of the mountain. Ski patrol is on the radio with us, so our radios are kind of weird. Military UHF, VHF can't pick up some civilian stuff, so we had some aftermarket Motorola radios that had military band and civilian bands on them.
Okay.
So I was swapping frequencies back and forth, talking with ski patrol, and the pilots can hear me talking, but they can't hear their ski patrol answering back. So I was like, hey, they got positive visual on the one guy. He's partially buried. They can see him with binoculars, but we couldn't see him from our angle where he was. And then they had that guy that was kind of like moving around at the bottom of the mountain. So I said, hey, this guy's moving. This guy's not. Let's go to this guy first. The guy is not moving. So we threw a Mark 18 smoke grenade, because it was well deep down into a gully, and we were about like 800 feet above that. And it's if you imagine like 2 ski mountains coming into one bowl.
Okay.
So we threw the smoke to see what the winds were doing at the bottom of that gully. Some guys throw streamers, we throw a smoke. So we threw a smoke. The winds were pretty calm. Actually, the winds were negligible, like not even existent at that one specific point. And
wow. Nice.
got over top of him, and he was the only thing that I can see was his right shoulder, part of his face, and his arm outstretched like this. Everything else was covered in snow. Rappelled down to him. Instantly knew, like called it over the radio. A lot of trauma to the body, pretty cold. Other side of his face that was covered was pretty. Just in case the family ever listens, I don't want him. It was pretty bad. So he was deceased. He was
Appreciate that.
deceased. Called it over the radio, and they marked time. That I remember having a quick conversation on the radio. They're like, "Hey, do you think it would be easy to get him out?" And I just said, "Don't risk it right now." The ground party coming in to get him. So especially like if we pulled up the Abby stuff from this day, like it was low risk. It was in the green. It was a man triggered avalanche, So it's just going in, asking them to go in after us to recover the body is like, it was unsafe. So I just said, hey, it's not worth it right now. I said, being physically here, and I'll show you the video later, I don't think that you should do it. So then I locked off on the rope, and then they came into a hover and then brought me back down to where the other guy was, and they were separated by maybe 100 yards, maybe a little more, down the mountain. So they had to ascend up and then come down with the bird. And then from the air, it looked like he had like been vomiting, right?
Okay.
Like there was just yellow stuff all like beyond yellow. It looked like yellow and blood, like all like it was a trail following him.
Yeah.
You actually could see that in the snow before you could see him. It's like clear as day. You can see that. So
Interesting. Wow.
we followed it and found him. When I show you the video, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And got down to him. Had the vest with me. These snow boulders were like the size of Volkswagen Beetles. So I had to like climb up to him and get to him a little bit, and got to him. He was posturing, significant like injury to his face, dent in his helmet, and he had all these clothes on that didn't fit. Like they did not look like his size. So he was so hyped out, he had taken the clothes off of the other dude when he went unconscious. So he
Oh,
had his
wow.
buddy, he had his buddy's clothes on him. And he was a very large human, and that guy wasn't. So like that's why I was like, what the hell is going on? Like it didn't fit. Like if you pay really close attention to the video, like the outside ski pants came up to like mid calf, but he had his own ski pants on underneath. So I got the vest on him. We opted to not do any care on the ground because like as I was on the ground, like the snow was settling and you could feel like the ground moving. So like
Wow.
it's like the easiest way to explain this is imagine you're standing on giant Legos and like you put a Lego on loose and then you finally press it in. You feel it like solidify. That's what it felt like on the ground. But we're on
Wow.
top of these boulders, and the guys from Bellingham Mountain Rescue were keeping an eye on the northern part of the mountain to see or the upper part of the mountain to see if there was another slide, because they were just gonna like bail on the radio, and I was like, peace, or if I was clipped in, we were leaving. So we were at like maybe 120 feet of rope, put him in the vest. I was on the rappel rope, clipped into him, and then we short hauled out. And then
Yep.
we do it in-flight hoist recovery so they send the hoist down, we fake the rope, and then go into the bird.
Love it. Love
Going
it.
in, going into the bird, people are like scratching their head. You have to see it, but it's a phenomenal way to rescue people. So you just don't
Yeah.
have to get on the ground and get in the bird. Looking back on this now, like when we used to train, we used to like, I'm gonna put my medical gloves on under my regular gloves so that when I do care, I can just take those gloves off and immediately like touch this person, and I'll have regular gloves on, so I don't have to sit there like putting medical gloves on. I was sweating so much down there that I had like chill glands in between my glove and my hand because the moisture in my glove froze. So
Oh, no.
I was trying to like pull the glove off. So when I got in the bird, they put him on the litter, or they put him on the deck. We couldn't get the litter rigged. We couldn't get the litter situated quick enough because of all the rope that was faked out.
Okay.
All the belay rope. So I was trying to undo my carabiners to start working on them, and I had no dexterity. My fingers were like crimped like this and frozen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, yo, fucking, he's like, Danny, help me right now. So I had to have the crew chief like disconnect my carabiners, but we didn't have approved twist locks at the time.
Okay.
So we still had screw gate. At the time, they were not making good twist lock metal carabiners. And for aviation, we only used steel because the hook is steel.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of science behind this. And I've had people like, that's not true. And then they think about it. I'm like, okay, that is true. Repeated use of aluminum carabiners and a steel hook caused microfractures in aluminum carabiners. So that they could break. And it happened to the Canadians a couple times. The Comox dudes, they actually had someone die like that. So we only use steel carabiners. So the steel was frozen, like the moisture in the screw lock. So he had to like bang them a little bit and like, gam sausage, like warm it up, and he finally gets the carabiners off, and I like get everything off. I'm like going like this with my hands and like trying to like warm them up. So at this time, and in the video, so the dude, he was his eyes were open. I would say he was not alert. I gave him a Glasgow coma scale of about 9. 9 or 10.
Cow.
And in halfway up, he started doing this like Joker smile thing. Like half of his face was drooped, the other half was doing this weird smile. His one eye was fixated, one wasn't. One pupil was super constricted, one was starting to like open up. And he had a significant dent on his helmet, and I was like, all right. No other trauma noted. Like chest wall was good, belly soft, non-tender, pelvis was stable. And the only reason I like instantly remembering this is I just taught a class about traumatic brain injury the other day, and I showed people this video, so it's like fresh in my mind. But
awesome.
He had all those clothes on. I just IO'd him. I was like, fuck this. Like, I don't have time for this. I don't have time to start an IV. IO'd him, flushed him with ketamine. So he screamed for like a second, and then like the ketamine hit, and he didn't care about the bone plug anymore. And he IO'd him. We got warm fluids going, and at that time, right before I pushed the ketamine, he started doing like having episodes of like trismus, like biting down on his jaw like really hard, and he was like, like spitting, but not really breathing. So I just looked at everyone in the bird, and I was like, hey, we're RSIing this guy like right now. So rapid sequence induction. He has an obvious traumatic brain injury. We're going to put him down. And I'm a paramedic with an EMT, and usually like you would want more than that. My crew chief at the time, my HIRA was an EMT, or I flip flares. My HIRA was going through EMT school. My crew chief was an EMT. So I said, hey, you guys bag him, get him on the monitor. I'm going to draw some drugs up. So drew up 150 of ketamine for my induction agent, and 10 of, we had vecuronium. So I drew up 10 of vec. Yep. And we had warm fluids going at the time. Cut all the rest of his clothes off. I tried to like drop an NPA, but he was fighting it a little bit. And you can give NPAs to people with head injuries. The only contraindication is like an obvious Lafort fracture, which he didn't have. He was fighting me a little bit.
You really are in training right now. This is great.
Yeah, dude. I've been a paramedic a long time. Like civilian world. I moonlight, so I work as a civilian, and I've been a flight paramedic. But we're in the middle of our SEAL medic refresher class. I got like 25 SEALs we're doing a medic refresher for, and I was like, yeah, like let's just put him down. So I induced, right as I started to like push the ketamine, we were like coming over the helipad for the hospital. It's a 15-minute flight to the closest trauma center, or a level 2 trauma center. He really should have gone to Harborview in Seattle, but actually where he went, I'm glad he went to St. Joe's is the name of the hospital in Bellingham. They have a hypothermic ICU for brain injuries. Did not know that at the time. When I dropped him off, I thought they were going to send him to Harborview. He ended up staying there for his whole care, made a full recovery. But we dropped him off, and dispatch was like, "Hey, we don't have an ambulance for you right now, so you got to wait." So we're like flying over, doing just a quick survey of the LZ, and we did there because there was cars over there, and we always used to break windshields when we landed. So we were like, let's just make sure there's not a lot of cars there. So we broken a few, more than a few, but
it happens.
Don't park next to the helicopter pad. Duh.
Hey, you know what? Walk a couple steps further. and your car won't get
if I see a
toasted.
windsock in the parking lot, I might park a little farther away, right? So we were landing. I just pushed the ketamine. He did not relax a little bit, and I'm not a fan of intubating on the induction agent. I will fully paralyze them. I know some providers will check to see. So we landed, and then I pushed the VEC. So the intubation happened in the back of the helicopter, but it didn't happen in flight. Someone called me out about that one time. I was like, okay, all right, I'll explain it correctly. So
Oh,
uh
good Lord.
yeah, it's dumb, dude. But we pushed the VEC, jaw relaxed. We used a video laryngoscope to intubate them.
Nice.
We have them in the bird. In the video, you can see the glottic opening perfect. He was a real easy intubation. However, he was very anterior, so the tube was almost buried to the hub.
Wow.
He was pretty deep. Yeah, he was like 25 or 26 at the teeth, maybe 27. So
So for everybody that doesn't know, on the tube, there's little numbers there, and it just shows how deep the tube is into the trachea, and then where the balloon is, and then you mark it at the teeth. So then you walk in and be like, all right, doc, here's where we're at. The other thing it
yeah,
does, one more, sorry, side note of it,
you're
is
good.
the deeper you are, you end up in the right,
Right main stem.
right, yeah, the right main stem of the lung. So that means you're only breathing in one lung. So you want to back it off a little bit. But if you're deep like that, there's a whole bunch of stuff. You check lung sounds and equal
Yep.
rise and fall and all this stuff. But 26 is pretty deep for a tube, for those that don't know.
Yeah, so he was deep, and like I thought I might have maintenance stemmed him, but I had just saw the tube pass through the cords, and I was like, "There's no way. There's absolutely no way." And I looked at the teeth, and I was like, "All right, fuck it." So pulled the glide scope out, inflated the bulb, great end tidal, and then we just started bagging him to 30 to 35 to start hyperventilating him. His pressure was 180s at the time, so he was like, the brain was squeezing, like his brain was under some pressure. But we turned him over, and then I dropped him off inside the ER, and they immediately started this like hypothermia brain injury protocol. So like I was warming him, they started cooling him.
Oh,
So
wild.
yeah. So they did this whole like thing, and then dropped them off, turned him over, and then we went back, and then a couple of days later we physically went up there to do a check on him, and met his wife, and full recovery.
No
Still
kidding.
still a local up there. I get some pictures every once in a while of some of my buddies who are out of the military now, who live up there, and they're like, "Yo, look who I ran into," and I was like, "Oh shit, have a beer for me." But yeah, his buddy unfortunately didn't survive, and
That's too bad.
yeah, so but they recovered the body the next day. We like laid out some pretty good lat longs for them. We had the pilots mark the lat long on the bird, so we can give them a good grid reference of exactly where he is, so they can navigate their hike to him without having to cross any other unstable terrain. So they were able to recover the body the next day, and yeah.
Wow. Freaking amazing.
Yeah, that was not technical. It was like an easy rescue to rescue him, but like medically, like that is 0 to 100 real quick. And then going back to I told you about that snow that was covered yellow,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so it was not vomit. It was shit. And
Oh.
I found that out when we cut the vest off of them in the aircraft. We cut the rescue vest off them. I had brought my hand to like touch the radio, and I was like, "What the fuck is that?" And think back to, because I know you're a medic, so like think back to like when you did rotations in a trauma center, and they used to do the whole check for rectal tone and the sphincter. So loss of rectal tone is a true brainstem injury. So he had no vagal tone in his ass,
Oh,
and he was
yeah.
just leaking everywhere.
Oh
So
my gosh. Yeah, I wouldn't
yeah.
even thought of that, even now.
So I was on the
Interesting.
fence. I was on the fence about intubating him. Everyone's like, "Yeah, I'll intubate in the back of the bird." It is not easy, especially in the back of a 60.
No.
So I was on the fence. When I knew that he had a brainstem injury, it put that peg to, I'm doing this no matter what. So, yeah. So,
Bro, that is
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. So it was a good case. There was a lot of stuff after that. Like I talked about the bad calls stuff. Like, do not be afraid to go talk to someone. Like it was how his injury pattern looked like a case that I had in Afghanistan, and I needed to go talk to someone after that, and I started seeking out mental health. So don't be afraid for anyone to go get mental health. Yeah.
Man, I back that up, and you know what? Anybody can send me an email too. Like how being able to just talk about it and to be able to talk to people that can relate is a something that's really nice. Like that peer to peer support. Keith Carolyn talks about it from Ireland all the time. We're all available. We really are.
Yeah. Yep. And I whether it's a peer, a professional, or someone you've never met before, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to talk to someone. So.
Yeah. It's all good, man. We've been there.
Yeah.
All of us have been there. In your shoes, what you're feeling right now, we've been there. So we can relate. We understand. So
there's a chapter of a book that someone's written that you're walking through right now. You know what I mean? So yeah.
100%. Yep. Without a doubt. So, and some of us made it through and some of us didn't. But my wife still calls me a little crazy. She looks at me like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. Same. Yeah. You got that weird tick about you right now. It'll be fine. It'll go away. Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Mostly it's when I'm grabbing her ass. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Nothing. Honey, nothing.
Yeah.
Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Sorry, honey. Sorry. Yeah. All right, brother. Let's do our last one, and then we'll close out of here in a minute. So this one is pretty cool because Navy Regional Northwest. The President of the United States takes pleasure in presenting the Air Medal with gold numeral 1 for the first award. Wait a minute, I thought you already earned an Air Medal.
Yes. So this is actually this is like my third or fourth. 2 were from combat, but the Navy updated their awards instruction, and so the first one said with first Bronze Star. So Bronze Star used to be individual heroic achievement or a V. Right when this was signed, everything's numerals now. So they like screwed up everyone's award system of how they like got stuff. So everyone had to go like resubmit stuff to admin. So yeah, it's a typo that they made. It's a fit rep bullet for some officer somewhere. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. Well, in that case, you know what? I'm gonna read that again, and everybody gets to hear the whole thing again. Here we go.
Yeah.
The President of the United States takes pleasure in presenting the Air Medal, and I'm gonna stop right there. To Chief Hospital Corpsman Wayne N. Papalski, United States Navy, for service set forth in the following citation for meritorious achievement while participating in aerial flight as search and rescue medical technician at Able Air Station, Whidbey Island, Washington, on 6 August 2017. Chief Papalski and crew successfully responded to a challenging, hazardous mountain rescue at an altitude of 8,500 feet, mean sea level, on Mount Stewart in the Cascade Mountain Range, Washington. His superior leadership and medical acumen were critical in the successful rescue of a severely injured and unconscious climber stuck in a deep draw surrounded by jagged rock spires and rugged terrain. Despite poor visibility and limited power, he evaluated the unforgiving landscape and precarious position of the climber to devise the safest plan. With a 0% margin for error, he provided positioning calls while assisting the crew chief in extracting the survivor. Once the survivor was on board, he performed and directed the medical team on executing critical advanced life support services. Based on the treacherous terrain and environmental conditions, as well as high altitudes, no other air or ground assets in the entirety of the Pacific Northwest could have reached or extracted the climber in time. By his skillful airmanship, steadfast aggressiveness, and exemplary devotion to duty in the face of hazardous flying conditions, Chief Pulaski reflects great credit upon himself and upheld the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service. Yeah, Wayne! Dude, this is freaking sick!
This was it. This is a wild call. We had the dream team on duty. So we had two pilots who were both SAR mission commanders. We had our crew chief, Francisco Toledo, phenomenal dude, reservist now, out doing some stuff in Tucson, EMT. And then we had my buddy Austin Shutt, flight paramedic, me, flight paramedic, and then we had a training flight paramedic on. So we were dual hatting duties because we were short HIRAs. So we had two flight paramedics, and then we had the trainee.
Love it.
An EMT and three paramedics, right? So, like I was saying, Mount Stewart, Wild Mountain. It was very hot. We had to fly at 10,000 feet to get there because we were flying over all the fires in the summer that year. So like it was very hazy. It was an hour before sunset. I have a small like video clip of this too, because it was like daytime and then it went night and then like you can't see shit. So it's like a minute long video. But we had to dump gear, dump fuel, and then Toledo, not out to him, but the calls were so technical that he was having trouble telling the pilots, because we were within like feet of the rock wall. Like the rotor disc was like, the tip caps were like within feet, and the tail was pretty close too. So he was having trouble hoisting and making hoist calls because we opted to do a direct deployment. And we kind of like Rochambeau'd in the bird. So I was the addition to the crew. It was just going to be the two of them, and then I was the addition for duty that weekend. And Austin went down to recover him, so he did a direct deployment. But like, I was just stayed in the bird. So I said, hey, Francisco, I was like, hey, you do the hoist since you're running the hoist, and I'll make all your directional calls because I'm a crew chief as well. So I was like, I'll make all your directional calls. So I assumed control with the pilots. And I was like, hey, I have all controls. The pilots just do everything. And then he's got the hoist. So he's giving hoist calls, doesn't have to pick his head up to look at the rock wall at all, looking down. We had the assist medic looking at, or our dude who was in training, he was out the left side, ensuring that we would have an out if we started to droop power, like give us directional calls, clear into the left.
Nice.
And we had our left seat pilot. So then I'm just giving directional calls like, hey, stop forward, stop back, come left one. And then Franny was kind of just like giving hoist calls up and down. He got down on the ground, and then I believe that this was a vest. We had the new vest at the time. We got finally upgraded. So I believe this was a vest, not a litter. I'd have to look back at the report, but he was fucked up. He had a significant head injury, chest wall injury. He fell pretty good bit. We got him in, or Austin got him into the aircraft. We peeled off to the left, and then just march, going through March. Didn't see any bleeds. That was actively bleeding. He had a massive head lack. The bleeding, I ended up like opening the flap, shoving combat gauze in it, closing the flap. So
oh wow, oh damn,
yeah, it was right back here behind the ear, like because we put him in the C collar, and then we noticed that his ear was sticking up flat like this. Like, that's not normal. So we finished massive hemorrhage, and then I went to go look in his airway, and Austin was taken from the waist down, and I looked in his airway, and it was just filled with rocks and dirt. He just had dirt in his airway, like mass amounts of dirt in his airway. And I said, Austin, I was like, I don't like this. And I was like, look, and I shined my light, and he looked, and he was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, let's fucking tube him. And he was like, cool. So we RSI'd him in the back of the bird. So another innovation in the back of the bird. more ketamine, more Vec, and then we actually intubated him in the bird.
Yeah.
Austin was doing it. I let Austin get it, so I'm like, I'm the chief, right? So like, I'm a 32-year-old chief. I want to do all the fun, but I was like, hey, bro, you can take the tube. But it ended up being we
That's
both had
great
to.
leadership right there. Look at you,
Yeah,
man.
we ended up
Wow.
we I also felt bad because I was the addition. So if I would have done it and he was on duty and I wasn't, I would never live that down. So
Love it.
because I got called out for stealing a rescue one time. So I was like, all right, bro, like I won't be a dick. But I he ended up needing help tubing him. So it ended up being his jaw was so rigid that he needed two people to uh hold the positioning with the blade, and then I had to pass the tube in. So he held like a tomahawk like position on the tube, and then I passed the tube through the cords, and then we did everything else and turned him over. I transferred like a month after that, maybe 2 months after that. Actually, that mission happened. We deployed to Houston for Hurricane Harvey. We went down there to support that, and then I immediately
Nice.
transferred like a week when I got home. And Austin said this guy followed up, and he made a recovery. It was not a full recovery. He has some permanent neuro defect or
Oh,
deficit.
dang.
But yeah, he can. I look at this. Can you talk and can you wipe your own ass? That's all I care about, right? So like he can do that. So
That's a win
yeah,
and a win.
it's a win, right? So but I remember like I had transferred and I went to be an instructor at like an entry level flight schoolhouse, and we're like talking about positioning. And I'm like, hey, like it's cool to be king dingling and be the crew chief, but sometimes you need help, right? So like don't be afraid to, if you can't make all the calls all the time. So we split controls of who does what. And just looking back now, like it was too unsafe. The margin of error to like do this and look up constantly,
Yeah,
like
look
he
up,
could
look
have looked
down, look down.
he could have looked up and missed something that happened to Austin because he's controlling the hoist, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it worked perfect. It was a good call. Another technical rescue call, and then another like really good medical call. I don't remember him having any other injuries. We thought he had like a tension at one point, like we considered needle D'ing him, and I think it was just he was just banged up real bad.
Yeah. Dang.
But yeah,
So
really,
there's a couple of things about that you just talked about that I really like. I'm all about utilizing everybody as to their max potential in the aircraft. And I've been in the helicopter where you have one pilot actually holding the altitude and the other, holding or moving position of the
yep,
aircraft. So you've got both pilots flying at the same time. You've got guys in the back that are working together in the hoisting, or one guy's doing one thing and the other guy's doing another in the back of the aircraft. I've also been on calls where, just like you did, not to the intubation part, but where the paramedic, I was the second paramedic on the aircraft, and the primary paramedic, he went through and he looked right at me. He's like, "What do you think?" And I was like, "You know what? This is what I think as well." And then we proceeded to, treat the patient together. So to feed off each other, man, I'm all about it. Like
yeah,
it's a big team effort. CRM all
yeah,
day long.
we were doing it too because the trainee, we were like, trying to he had like 10 rescues as a trainee, like just being on duty. And
Wow,
we're
nice.
like to have a bunch of Sikorsky passes and not even be qualified, it's like a big deal, right? So he we were trying to like engage him too, like, so like what do you think? And then at first, then it quickly became, all right, this isn't a training moment anymore, like this is, we gotta like got work to do,
Yeah,
boys, so
yeah,
it, put your thinking caps on. But he was a tough intubation. It was so dry from all the dirt and like rock in his mouth. Can't suction that shit out. He would have had to like dump fluid in his mouth to
then just sucks it out. Yeah,
to then suction it out. We tried rolling him, and then like I shoved an OPA in his mouth to like clear some of it out, but like it was just so dry and gross. So we ended up lubing the tube with the lube that comes from the King LT, and just lube the back of it, and then that kind of helped a little bit. It caused him some issues later because they had to go in and like bronchial clean him out because
yeah,
dirt was on the tube.
Oh man.
Just something that we found out later, but yeah, it was a good RM, CRM, really good medical call. Like those are the ones that like flight medics like, so it was a good one.
Dude. Well done again to
Yeah,
you
thanks,
and your
dude.
crew.
Yeah.
Heck
Yeah,
yeah.
that was definitely the boys. So they crushed that one. I just the extra for the ride. So
Oh, that's good.
yeah.
I'll tell you what, man. So we've been on for quite a while now. We've listened to some crazy good stories, and I know you have a whole bunch more, in your arsenal that you could tell.
Yeah.
But maybe we might have to meet up again one day and do this again,
Yeah.
just to hear a couple more. But I would like to ask you, like my standard question, advice that you would give to everybody else that's standard duty out there on watch, on call right now, even the ones that are coming up and want to do our job. What advice would you pass down?
Yeah, a couple of things, and I like that you asked this question. I've listened to a bunch of your podcasts, and I like listening to some other stuff that the guys say. I would honestly say it has changed a lot. Like you're a lot of peer groups ahead of me. It's changed a lot, and don't be afraid to ask questions. There is no dumb questions. They might sound dumb, but like to you at that point, you didn't know, so that's not a dumb question. There is no magic serving platter of training. Like no one's going to come up one day with an open checkbook and be like, what do you guys want to do tomorrow for training? So like, if you are a professional rescuer or a medic and you're reactive, this is not the community for you. You need to figure out a way to be proactive and be aggressive. And people might not like you for that, but you will be well trained and your people will be well trained. You might be a thorn in someone's side, but at least you have good training. And be very, very proactive, and then like seek training opportunities out. Just calling someone and saying, hey, you guys want to like, you show me yours, I show you mine. And then that could be the start of an amazing MOU, a memorandum of agreement, for future training or whatever. And then the last like kind of bit of it, and this is unavoidable due to the timeline of our lives right now, but we live in a very, very, very risk adverse, leadership centric, like minded military civilian world. Like everything, no one wants to get sued, no one wants to be on the internet, no one wants to be on social media, no one wants to be on the news. So we live in a risk adverse timeline. There's nothing wrong with that. Being safe is awesome. Like we all want to come home to our families. I want to come back. My kids are not, in the tub with rubber duckies anymore. They're preteens and teenagers, but like,
good luck.
Yeah. Everyone wants to like come home safe. You can be risk adverse and still take risk.
Yeah.
Follow ORM, follow your CRM, have good emergency action plans, brief everything. And the only way to be better is to test yourself. And if you're so scared to test yourself, it might be time to find another career. And in terms of medicine, it's ever changing. When I first came in, we never used tourniquets. Now we're doing wild stuff in the back of helicopters or MATVs, or I work with Naval Special Warfare now. So like we do I carry whole blood in CONUS and out of CONUS for training. You know what I mean? So like it's just wild. And train hard, have fun training, take video. You might be that guy. They're like, why do you have your video camera out? QA, QI.
Yeah.
You might catch something, but more importantly, like I've been flying for almost 18, 17 years now, and there's shit that I don't remember that I wish I had pictures of or video of, like deployments, friends, buddies, fun times, passing by a cruise ship, getting mooned by a bunch of chicks, like I wish I had memories of that, like, but
apparently you do. Well done.
I do. Yeah. But that was just an example.
I can either confirm or deny that I've had similar.
Yeah, it's actually FLIR footage, but yeah. So, but have fun. I mean, yeah, we talk about that on our other podcasts. Like have fun, take safe risks, and then do better, suck less. Yeah.
Oh, that's great, dude. Great advice, man, all the way around.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. There's so much we could talk about, like even to go in further depth of all that. We won't do it today, but take everything. You can take so much of that to a step further. So
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, I appreciate it, dude. Yeah, Jesse said you're a great dude. I've listened to a bunch of your podcasts, and I was like,
Thanks, man.
I love that. That dude is you need to get him back on. I know he did the fire stuff. He's got a lot of great rescues. That dude is the helo whisperer. He used to like walk out, put his hand on the tail, like, she's gonna perform great today. And I'm like, whoa, dude. It's like messing around with his horse, like he's gonna have a great race today. Yeah, that's the helo whisperer, dude. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Jesse, you've been called out. Let's go.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Well, Wayne, man, I can't thank you enough for coming on and just sharing the stories, the knowledge, and buddy, I get all into this stuff. Dude, I love it. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, bro. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And I'll probably see you at a Heli Expo 2023 in March.
Yeah, dude. Trying to clear some schedules up and make that happen for sure.
Yeah,
so,
buddy. Man, it's gonna be a good time if we can make it happen.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, one of us will be there for sure. So.
All right. That's cool.
Yeah,
that
dude.
means I'm drinking with one of you guys. Man, I
That's
really gotta
right.
stop saying that. I sound like a damn lush. You know what?
Nah, dude, it's
From
cool.
now on, it's gonna be like, I'm gonna meet you for coffee.
No, man, we're in the Navy and the Coast Guard. We're drinking. Yeah.
We're drinking. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Well, I will see you there. I appreciate it again, man. Thank you.
Yeah, dude. Peace out, man.
But later. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of here. Go. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Real ResQ Podcast. Please take a minute to like, subscribe, and hit that share button. I'm pulling chocks and taking off. But before I go, if anyone out there has a rescue story they would be willing to share, I would be humbled and honored to have you on as a guest. Or if you have any questions about rescue or anything else we talk about here, send an email to jason@therealresq.com. That's Jason at TheRealResQ.com. You can also check us out on our web pages, therealresq.com, our Facebook page, and our Instagram page @TheRealResQ. Again, a special thank you to all of you staying on the watch today. Always remember, when that SAR alarm goes off, those in distress are praying for a miracle. They are going to get you. Until next time, fly safe and swim hard.